Good morning, Women in Security Global Alliance. Today we are featuring Women in Security from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency within the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. My name is Madeline Ferrell, and I am one of approximately 150 chemical security inspectors within DHS's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, deployed to ensure the protection of high-risk chemical facilities around the nation, and I am the featured panel moderator for today's discussion. On the panel are four of my colleagues within CISA's Integrated Operations Division. They are Christine Figueroa, Kelly Goldblatt, Amanda Girvan, and Kelly Stone. Christine Figueroa is a protective security advisor and has been with the Department of Homeland Security for 19 years. Kelly Goldblatt is a cybersecurity advisor and has been with DHS for 1.5 years. Amanda Girvan is a supervisory chemical security inspector and has been with DHS for 12 years. Lastly, Kelly Stone is a modeling and geospatial analyst and has been with the Department of Homeland Security for 12 years. On behalf of the Assistant Director for CISA's Integrated Operations Division, Richard Driggers, we would like to thank Associate Director Sue Armstrong of the Infrastructure Security Division for being a trailblazer and champion and partnering with the American Society of Industrial Security and leading this collaborative effort to feature women in security within DHS. To facilitate the panel discussion, I have a series of questions for each of the panelists, which will introduce each of us to the Global Alliance. Ladies, first, I would like for each of us to give a brief summary of what our role is within the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. I am a chemical security inspector and has been with CISA for 11 years. With that being said, my role as a CSI is to execute the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Regulation. And that regulation focuses on identifying and reducing the risk of certain hazardous chemicals from being weaponized at chemical facilities that are determined to be high risk by the agency. So Protective Security Advisor Figueroa, I've explained my role as a CSI within CISA. Will you give the Global Alliance a brief summary of what your role is?
My name is Christine Figueroa, and I am a Protective Security Advisor for the Department of Homeland Security in CISA, overseeing the state of Arizona. Thank you so much for having me on this Women in Security panel. I would also like to thank ASIS International for their partnership and the rest of the security group who have built this alliance. Under the CISA umbrella is the Protective Security Advisor Program, PSAs for short. We are subject matter experts in physical security and resiliency. In Arizona, I work very closely with our private sector and our federal, state, local, and tribal law enforcement and government partners here in Arizona to protect Arizona's critical infrastructure and our nation's critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure refers to assets, systems, and networks, whether physical or cyber, so vital to the nation that their incapacitation or destruction would have a debilitating effect on national security, the economy, public health or safety, and our way of life. Basically, any physical structure that could be essential to everyday life, such as highways, dams, water and power plants, communication towers, factories, etc., as well as physical structures housing large number of people for special events like sporting arenas, Super Bowl stadiums, and convention centers, just to name a few. My primary mission is to proactively engage with these partners to enhance the security and resilience of critical infrastructure. So I do quite a bit of coordination with many partners across the board. I have 5 mission areas that directly support the security and resilience of our critical infrastructure. The first mission area is plan, coordinate, and conduct security surveys and assessments. Examples include providing an assist visit or security walkthrough, or a more in-depth assessment called the infrastructure survey tool. We also provide an infrastructure visualization platform, which captures still photos and videos of facilities using a very high-tech video camera. All these assessments and surveys help identify vulnerabilities and provide options for consideration in mitigating these risks. The second mission is to plan and conduct outreach activities. I recently conducted one of our one at our retail centers in preparation for the holiday season. We want to touch base with the retail industry to see if there are any security concerns they may be facing, especially this year with COVID-19 and the potential civil unrest and social unrest experienced this past year. In a few weeks, I will be doing the same type of outreach with our faith-based organizations. The third mission area is supporting National Special Security Events, NSSEs for short, and Special Event Activity Rating, SEER events for short. I have previously supported NSSEs with the 2009 and the 2013 presidential inaugurations, and I have also deployed to work 5 Super Bowls and many, many other sporting events. The fourth mission area is responding to incidents, whether they are natural or man-made. My orders are to support and deploy directly to the operation centers that is supporting those various incidents. Recently here in Arizona, I've been dealing with wildfires, possibly impacting critical infrastructure and the control of COVID-19. We must ensure our critical infrastructure partners, especially our lifelines, are not operationally impacted. And lastly, our fifth mission area is conducting training and exercises. I work closely with CISA's Office of Bombing Prevention and our regional exercise coordinator in providing my public and private sector stakeholders improvised explosive device awareness and risk mitigation training. I also provide valuable exercises in supporting our stakeholders' emergency action plans, which they have developed and desire to test through one of our exercises. I could go into so much more detail because of time. I think this pretty much sums up my job. You can also go and find all about CISA's programs and our risk assessments by going to CISA.gov, click on Infrastructure Security, and scroll down where you can see the Risk Assessment tab.
As a cybersecurity advisor, I work with both public and private organizations to help them be more cyber resilient and more cyber secure. I do this through advisory services. We do this also through helping them do assessments. And then we also do this through working with collaboration groups and networking organizations. We also help them identify and establish best practices. And then we also assist with doing incident coordination and incident assessment.
As Madeline stated, I am a Supervisory Chemical Security Inspector for CISA Region 9. I'm physically based in Arizona, and my area of responsibility includes Arizona, Nevada, California, Hawaii, and the Pacific Territories. My employees are chemical security inspectors who are strategically located throughout the region. Our mission is to lead the nation's effort to secure America's high-risk chemical facilities and prevent the misappropriation of certain chemicals for use in a terrorist attack on the homeland. We accomplish this mission through the systematic regulation, inspection, and enforcement of chemical infrastructure security requirements through the implementation of the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standards, also known as CFATS. Our inspectors work with high-risk chemical facilities to evaluate and enhance the security of their sites. We do so by conducting inspections and compliance assistance visits, during which we identify potential vulnerabilities or concerns, and then work with them to improve their site security plans to secure their chemicals from misappropriation or use.
Yeah, my name is Kelly Stone. I'm a modeling and geospatial analyst with CISA Region 10. I'm located in Seattle, Washington, and we cover a large area. We cover Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. And I do a lot of work focusing on critical infrastructure and cybersecurity, and looking at geospatial products and mapping tools to allow us to better understand those critical infrastructure partners and critical infrastructure facilities that we work with. I've been with CISA for about 2.5 years, and previously I was with FEMA Region 10 for about a decade. So I've been working in Homeland Security and Emergency Management for over 12 years now, and have been lucky enough to utilize all of my geospatial knowledge and expertise in my current role to better inform critical infrastructure projects that are occurring in our region.
Thank you, guys. That leads to my next question. Prior to transferring to DHS, I was with the U.S. Department of Labor, specifically the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, for 12 years. And there I served as a senior compliance safety and health officer, ensuring that workplaces across America were safe for employees to work. And that included ensuring the workplace safety of federal employees, right? But after investigating a major workplace explosion, which resulted in multiple fatalities, I decided that I needed a change and applied for the CSI position with DHS that was advertised. And that was how I came to transfer to DHS. So let me ask each of you, how did you guys come across your opportunity to work in the Department of Homeland Security and or CISA?
Well, that's an interesting story. On September 11, 2001, I was still on active duty in the Coast Guard. I was stationed in Washington, D.C. at the time, and soon after, I was called to be on the Tiger team in putting together a brand new organization, the Department of Homeland Security. We did quite a bit of work in a small cubicle, piecing this monumental task of putting together a new department. So I consider myself a plank owner with the Department of Homeland Security. As a Coast Guard officer, I started working in the Homeland Security Operations Center, which is now known as the National Operations Center. Soon after, I retired from the Coast Guard and began working for General Dynamics as a contractor, hired to help put together the Protected Security Advisor program, their mission statement, and operation plans. I then was offered a federal position as a Protected Security Advisor for the National Capital Region. My Coast Guard training, background, and leadership helped mold me in the position I hold today.
When I graduated from college, I was actually hired on to a local sheriff's office. What I was hired on to do actually didn't end up being what I did when I worked for them, because one day I walked into my boss's office and he looked at me and he said, "You're doing cyber." And I was like, "Okay, well, what does that mean?" And he said, "I don't know, go figure it out." And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do with it?" And he said, "I don't know, go figure it out." And so I ended up flopping around like a dead fish for about 4 or 5 months trying to figure out what the heck cyber was, what cybersecurity was, what I was going to do with it, all of those things that you had to go figure out, right? Because it's important to note that I had nothing to do with cybersecurity prior to being told that this is what I would be doing in that position. But I figured it out, and after flopping around for a while, I figured out which way was up, and I started running from there. In that position, I was able to learn a lot about cybersecurity, a lot about the different threats that are out there, and all those different things. My eyes were completely open to the world that was cybersecurity. In that position, or I should say when I was in that position, the state actually opened up a dedicated cyber intelligence analyst. And it's important to note that that actually was with the state police. So the state police were looking at getting more heavily into addressing cybercrime and different cyber networking issues. And so they were looking at hiring a cyber intel analyst. And in that position, I was able to continue the work that I had been doing at the county's sheriff's office, but I was able to do it in a much larger scale. So I was providing assistance to the entire state as opposed to just that region that I was in. I made a lot of connections and I met a lot of people there. They provided me the opportunity to take some SANS classes and some professional certification trainings. So I was able to do that. I picked up my CISSP when I was there. And one of the things that I had the opportunity to do while I was there was work a lot with the Department of Homeland Security in a variety of different ways. And with a bunch of different departments. And one of the things that came out of that was that when CISA opened up the CSA positions, I was sent it and I was told, "Hey, you should apply. We want you to come work for us." Funny thing about that is that I applied for the position and was told no, that I didn't qualify, no interview, no nothing. With that being said, though, they ended up reposting the position again a couple of months later, and I was like, and everybody kept saying, you got to reapply, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And I reapplied, not thinking that I was necessarily going to get the position, but I ended up getting not only, an interview and being able to talk to them and learn more about what CISA did and how it worked, but also I ended up being hired on by the organization. And so I can't say that I necessarily took a traditional path, right? Going from not knowing anything about cybersecurity and being an anthropology major to all of a sudden working law enforcement to now I work for CISA and I'm, in a doctorate program right now working on my cybersecurity degree. So it's been a great ride.
Thanks, Madeline. That's a really great question. And to be honest with you, it's one that I often ask myself because it seems unreal to me when I look back at my career and how I got here. I graduated from Rutgers University in 2003 with a bachelor's degree in the administration of justice and was hired by the University Police Department as an admin secretary, basically. As a university employee, however, I was able to attend graduate school for free, which is an awesome perk that I really took full advantage of. During my second semester of grad school, I received an email about a 3-month internship opportunity in DC in Homeland Security. At that time, I really didn't know much about the agency or the field, but it sounded interesting. So I applied and was accepted as one of the first interns at the department's first federally funded Research and Development Center, or FFRDC. My employer, Rutgers, was very supportive and allowed me to take a temporary leave of absence, but I never returned. After the internship, I worked for the FFR employee for just over a year and then went on to work for a few DC area contractors on a variety of programs within DHS and the Transportation Security Administration. In 2008, at the encouragement of some of my federal counterparts, I applied for a few jobs within CISA's predecessor organization and was hired as a program analyst in November of 2008. Initially, I worked on developing a variety of vulnerability assessment tools for use within the critical infrastructure sectors that Christine mentions, before moving into the division responsible for the CFATS regulation. I've held a variety of positions within the Chemical Security Program Office, working on the CFATS regulation at headquarters on policy and stakeholder engagement, before transitioning to work as a supervisor out here in the field in 2014.
Yeah, so prior to coming on to CISA, I've been with FEMA Region 10 for about a decade. My previous experience was in geology and geospatial science. I've been working in the geospatial field for 20 plus years, and I applied to a job with FEMA as an external candidate. And essentially you have to be a US citizen and to be able to apply to work for DHS. And I was lucky enough to be able to start working at FEMA Region 10 as a temporary worker and then ultimately get a permanent position within FEMA. And then I moved over to CISA a little prior to when CISA began, and changed a lot of my focus to really focus on critical infrastructure and cybersecurity rather than just general emergency management. So it was a really good move for me to move over and continue my journey in DHS.
Thank you. I also transferred to DHS because I believe that we all have a joint responsibility to help keep our nation safe. And knowing that I am fulfilling my personal belief brings me satisfaction. And that is what I like most about my specific job at CISA. So my next question is, what do you like most about your specific job in CISA?
I have the pleasure and privilege to work in locations and at facilities that are not open to the public view. We have 16 critical infrastructure sectors, and I've had the privilege to work with all these sectors in one way or another. For example, commercial facilities such as malls, hotels, and casinos, sporting venues. Also in sectors such as biolabs, where I had to suit up in a hazmat suit before entering. I participated in boat rides to look at mitigation measures at critical dams. I even hung off of a scaffolding from a major bridge in Virginia. I supported water plants, power plants, even national monuments. I can even say I sat on George Washington's head. Yes, the one on Mount Rushmore. When I perform these vulnerability assessments, not only do I get to understand their operations and what keeps them up at night, but it also builds a trust and partnership of support, helping the caretakers, owners, and operators to improve their security and managing risk is very rewarding to me. Pointing out vulnerabilities, potential vulnerabilities, and identifying options for consideration, mitigating those vulnerabilities, truly helps me sleep well at night.
I love the fact that I get to help people in this job. You know, oftentimes I am seeing them when they're having a bad day, and I'm trying to help them recover. But with the same side of that too, I get to work with them before they're having a bad day and try and help them strengthen their cybersecurity posture, and hopefully prevent attacks from actually happening and keep them from being victims. I love the fact that I get to work with organizations throughout the United States for a variety of reasons. I love the fact that I get to work with all of the different critical infrastructure sectors. So one day I can be working with education, the next day I can be working with healthcare, and then the next day I'm working on election security, right? So it's a very diverse job with a lot of opportunities. And it's, in particular, is part of a field that is constantly changing, and it's creating new challenges and opportunities, which I love trying to address.
Thanks, Madeline. In order to really answer this question, I first need to explain briefly how our program works. CFATS is a risk-based regulation with a list of over 300 chemicals of interest, and facilities in possession of any of the chemicals on this list are required to submit certain information to DHS. We evaluate each facility individually based on what they have, how much they have of it, how it's used and stored, and whether it's shipped or sold, and then ultimately determine whether that specific facility is subject to regulation. I love the unique nature of this job because no two facilities are alike. And if you ask any of my colleagues, I think they'll agree that once you've been to one CFATS facility, you've been to one CFATS facility. They're not your average chemical manufacturers and distributors. We cover a vast array of facilities, and there really is no such thing as a typical one. So one day we might be inspecting a chemical warehouse, and the next it might be a public swimming pool, a raceway, or a university. I've even been to the center of the universe. As chemical security inspectors, one of our primary responsibilities is to conduct compliance activities and inspections at these high-risk facilities. Ultimately, it's our job to make the regulatory requirements relatable to facility owners and operators. During these interactions, we work with the security managers to ensure they understand the importance of enhancing security and protecting chemicals from misappropriation. One of my favorite inspections was an oil rig out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. This particular facility presented some really unique challenges for our team, including a requirement to successfully perform a rope swing from the boat to the platform in the middle of the ocean with 10-foot swells while dodging a group of sea lions that were sitting on the deck. Through the course of this inspection, we learned that those sea lions always hang out on the boarding decks and act as somewhat of a natural alarm for approaching vessels to those that are already on the rig. I think one of the most interesting nuances of CFATS for me that separates ours from other regulatory programs is that we don't tell security managers how to secure their facilities. Instead, we work with them to understand their operations and identify topographical, environmental, and other factors, which in this case were miles of open ocean, the storage location of the chemicals, and the sea lion. All of these things contribute to their overall layered security approach. And while I can neither confirm nor deny whether the sea lions made it into that site security plan, I can tell you they definitely made this one of my top site visits ever. In addition to visiting some interesting places, I also really enjoy the work that I get to do with facility personnel, most of whom don't have backgrounds in security. I've found that many are dual-hatted, and most are health and safety experts, but really don't have a lot of experience in this security field. So much of my time and that of my colleagues is spent educating them on principles of physical and cybersecurity. It's kind of like being a teacher.
A lot of us in the regional offices, we've only been out here for a few years, so our region has grown substantially, and with that, we are able to bring in various expertise, including my position. So some of the things that I'm able to bring to our group is looking at how natural hazards especially might impact our critical infrastructure. We have a very large risk of earthquakes out here in Seattle and in Oregon and Alaska as well. And that could greatly impact our infrastructure, and not only impact a specific facility such as a hospital, but impact a substation that might be feeding that facility. So being able to show that type of information geospatially on a map so people understand these relationships and how facilities are dependent on one another is really key. And that really helps our partners, understand that it's not just their facility they have to be worried about. It's really other infrastructure that are feeding into that facility, as well as impacts from other threats, such as natural hazards, active shooter, and any other types of. So it's great to be able to bring my expertise in natural hazards as well as GIS to this job, so we can have a better view and overall understanding of what impacts there might be to critical infrastructure. And hopefully we can work with that critical infrastructure partner and improve it to make sure that they're more resilient. So if an event does happen, they are not impacted and they can still function.
With that being said, one difference that was apparent to me after I joined CISA was the male to female ratio. In my 5-state region, there are only 2 women. Whereas at the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, there was more of a balance with safety and health professionals. I haven't researched the literature to determine what the difference is, but what were some challenges, if any, that you faced in your line of work? And specifically, any challenges you faced as a woman in your line of work?
Most, if not all, are not because of being a woman. I never felt a unique challenge because of being a woman. During my career in the military and within DHS, there were many times that I was the only woman in the room. I guess what I do feel is that it can be lonely when I seek out other women in the room. I definitely make an effort to introduce myself to other women in hopes to build that professional working relationship with them. There were times in my early career where I felt that I was looked upon and possibly underestimated. But once they got to know me and I gained their trust, they pretty much could figure out I could hold my own.
There have been quite a few challenges. So there's the technical aspect, right? So with cybersecurity, the techniques and the different things that they're doing, that the attackers are doing, are constantly changing. And the things that you need to do to be more cyber secure, yes, there's a baseline, but a lot of what you're doing actually needs to change as well and to evolve with the attackers and the different situations that are happening as well. When you look at the fact that traditionally cybersecurity kind of started out as being, just something that encompassed computers and servers and that sort of thing. And now it's switched around and you have light bulbs and automobiles and refrigerators and ovens and all these different things that used to not be connected to the internet are now connected, which all puts them inside of the cybersecurity realm. So there's definitely a lot of challenges to the work itself, which are good because I think they help keep you on your toes and give you more things to think about. But I will say on kind of the negative side of things, there has been more than one occasion where I have definitely been treated as kind of the other, particularly in situations with my male counterparts. And unfortunately, I've had to find different opportunities and different ways of addressing those situations. So some of them may be working with my male counterparts to try and get them to do what needs to be done, or different things like that, in order to address the issue at hand. But I will say on the positive side, in a lot of cases, my male counterparts have been fantastic and they have provided assistance. And, when you sit down and talk to them, they realize that there is some challenges there that kind of need to be dealt with and addressed that they may not have realized was going on. And I will say that, that it's important to note that the cybersecurity field is definitely changing and more diverse than it has ever been. When I first got started, it was not uncommon for me to walk into a room and everybody stop and stare at me, right? Because I was the oddball compared to a lot of the people in the room. That doesn't happen as much anymore, and it's getting less and less frequent. So it is definitely becoming a more inclusive environment, and there are definitely areas in which I think that it is moving in the direction that the right direction of inclusion. And I look forward to a time when it is fully inclusive and everyone feels comfortable working in the environment.
I think one of the biggest challenges, it's not because I'm a woman, it's that I don't have that prior military or law enforcement background that many of my colleagues have, which really made it more challenging for me to be hired within the government. You know, I was in the middle of working on my degree at Rutgers when 9/11 happened and the Department of Homeland Security was created. So it also wasn't something that I focused my education on. I think throughout my career, I've just been fortunate to have a series of mentors who really taught me to look at all of life's challenges as hurdles, not roadblocks, and to realize that there are many ways in which to overcome them. As a supervisor, it's really one of the things that I try to instill amongst my team, that there are often many solutions for the same problem, and that sometimes a combination of all of them is what's best.
I will say that some of the challenges in my current position is getting people to think geospatially and use that technology that we actually have. That's always a barrier that we have, and then like I met, and then previously as well. It is difficult to get a position in the federal government. It's something you really gotta try and push at. A lot of times, if you don't have veterans preference, it is a challenge. So not necessarily being a female or male, but it's definitely something you really have to keep at and keep trying. And I actually had to move to another region to get a permanent position within the federal government. But then once you are in the federal government, you do have kind of that an internal opportunity to go to other positions and apply to other positions a bit more easily. So it's definitely worth it. I'm hoping to have my entire career in the federal government, but it takes some challenges and work, to actually get in the federal government and stay in the government as well. But I will say it's been a great career thus far, and all of the people I've worked with as well, like I said, have been a diverse workforce, and I've seen that change over time and improve, which has been great. Yeah, overall, very good, and just really keep trying. If you as a woman want to get into the federal government, keep trying. Try to come on maybe as a temporary employee, try to maybe be willing to move other places to get that permanent type of position. So just be flexible and open if that's something you'd like to pursue.
My next question focuses on recruitment. By increasing women in security and providing diversity of thought, I think it broadens the capabilities and effectiveness of the department and the organization at large. What are your thoughts? Do you think it is difficult to recruit women in security, or specifically in your line of work?
CISA has over 3,300 employees. PSAs represent just 3% of the agency. There are currently 120 PSAs across the nation, and of those, 6 are female. It would be very progressive to increase that ratio in the PSA program. Efforts have been made to identify those pathways to similar occupation, skill sets, and work culture. We tend to fall within the same community as the military, law enforcement, emergency managers, private sector security, if you will. There should be a career path to those similar occupations. For instance, I wasn't even aware of the PSA program until I retired from the military. It is something that needs to be addressed at a more basic level and should be a career path before you graduate from, such as law enforcement academy or the military, so that you know what you can strive for after you get out or retire. In speaking with my colleagues, many people do not even know that this is even available and that the pathway to get here looks like. If more women knew this, it would be something they could pursue early in their career paths. If not, basically, we're not going to get the number of women to narrow the margin. Also, I can't emphasize enough the veterans' eligibility. With their proven experience, superior training, and security clearances that they bring with them, they do make an excellent candidate for this position. As far as getting more women into CISA, it's really a matter of ensuring there is diversity across the board in every occupation. CISA is not an exception. I believe all occupations should have diversity Because when it comes down to it, it's the people who run these organizations. So the more diverse your organization is, the more successful it'll be. So it's about diversity more. And that includes people of color, women, and basically everybody, I would think. The bottom line is the recruitment of women in the field is dependent upon the recruitment of women into the organizations that feed into CISA, like the military, like our law enforcement and other DHS and DOJ elements.
So I think it is difficult to recruit women into the cybersecurity field. And I think that there's a couple of important reasons why this is the case. So cybersecurity and all the different things that you can do within the field itself, a lot of people just don't know about it, right? There are many people who don't know that the cybersecurity profession exists. And then even within there, a lot of people don't know all the different areas that you can do within the field. It's a very diverse, large field. You can have different specializations, everything from working specifically with automobiles to looking at, the cybersecurity of the power grid to looking at the cybersecurity of a gas pump, right? There's a lot of different opportunities that are out there, and it's important to note that these things are there, but a lot of people just don't realize it. And so I think one of the ways that we can tackle this is by helping to educate women on all the different areas that they can be part of and that they can really make a difference in. Another area which I think is important is the fact that there's a lot of misperceptions around cybersecurity, and a lot of these I think really need to be addressed. So for example, right, I've been to more than one cybersecurity conference, and when I sit there and I talk with women, one of the things that kind of gets said or is discussed is, there's always these really aggressive terms that are often associated with the cybersecurity field. So for example, cybersecurity attacker, cybersecurity warrior, right? Those sorts of things. So to be a cybersecurity warrior makes sense if you're in the military, right? So the military, they need fighters, they need warriors, that all makes perfect sense. But if you're not necessarily that type of person, and say maybe you're not a fighter, but you're more of a fixer, the term warrior can actually be a big deterrent. I mean, I've talked to people who literally have looked at me and said, I am not a cybersecurity warrior. That is a horrible term. That just needs to stop, right? So that's something to think about. The other thing that goes along the same lines of misperceptions is just kind of sitting there and looking at and discussing what a cybersecurity professional looks like and how they act. So a lot of people associate cybersecurity professionals as being, some male sitting in their basement who's socially awkward and all that stuff. So yeah, those people do exist, right? But that's not the case for all cybersecurity practitioners. There are a lot of people who are amazing individuals with great social skills and great technical skills, and it really is a much more diverse field than that. And then the other thing is we need to do a better job at matching up perceptions of work with the actual job itself. So for example, I came from law enforcement, right? And within law enforcement, there are a lot of perceptions about what I did on the cybersecurity side of the house and how I acted and what my job role was. And that was nothing like what I actually did, right? My job was completely different than what a lot of people decided to tell me that I did, which on occasion was funny, but it also realistically though, at the end of the day, goes to show you that it's just not there, right? We need to be able to do a better job at helping people realize that if you're saying, hey, I do this job in this field, this is what it actually means, that perceptions and realities are coming closer to being the same. I will say things have definitely gotten better on this front. Misperceptions are being chipped away, and they are getting better at mirroring reality. And I would say that the closer we can get to that, and the more that we can educate people, I think the better off we're going to be.
When I started in this field in 2004, it was heavily dominated by men. I think that at my internship, we maybe had one woman in management. But as I've continued throughout my career, I've been impressed by the various women who've held high-level positions within the department and within my agency, CISA specifically. Not only has their success been inspiring to me, but I've seen our agency make a concerted effort to diversify its workforce. So the landscape of people who comprise CISA is much different now than perhaps it was in the early days of the agency. I think the field of Homeland Security is also continually evolving, and as it does, we have seen our educational programs adapt as well. Currently, due to the nature of the threats our nation faces, cybersecurity is an international concern and focus. And as the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, I think we've done well in promoting our desire to hire and retain qualified cybersecurity professionals.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think historically it has been a male-dominated field, but the more and more interest that women can take in various education opportunities that are out there, I think the better. So I will say, personally, I've been able and been on multiple hiring panels where we've had both men and women, both different races as well, and really, the federal government is very good about being equal and open in their hiring processes. And you do have a panel of your peers that you're going to work with on that as well. So ideally, the best candidate, will be hired based on how they do in the interview and the resume, and what they submit in their resume as well. But I definitely encourage, women to take advantage of any of those opportunities out there. Like I said, like I mentioned, such as internships, anything, even if it's just a temporary job opportunity that you can get, to really try to learn more about Homeland Security and what you could potentially bring to that with your skill set and being a woman as well. So I think that I do think it has been a predominantly male work. But like I said, I do see it changing. I've seen more women and a more diverse workforce in the 12 years I started in DHS. So we have gone from, honestly, a very white male dominated group to a much younger, more diverse workforce composed of both men and women. So I do see it improving. And I just really encourage everyone to try to get any experience you can up front and ahead of time. Understand, take a look now at what is required for jobs you might be interested in. Start looking on USA Jobs for DHS opportunities and see what is available and look at those skill sets. And if you don't have that skill set, then try to go out and see if you can get that skill set either at the local level or an internship opportunity or even from private sector. And just keep trying, because it is hard to get in, but once you do get in, it can be a great and really fulfilling career. And we definitely want more women to broaden our workforce and offer our unique perspective and our unique backgrounds as well.
If I were to provide advice to girls who are interested in security, I would generally advise all girls to think about what you want to do in your line of work and build a plan to achieve that goal. Also, to know that there are many paths to achieving any goal. If one path doesn't work, then think about another path. If necessary, think about a third path as well. Deciding which job best suits you or what you want to support is a key, right? So I say that because in college, I was an EPA fellow. And after I finished graduate school, I worked for an environmental consulting firm, which was contracted to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. That was not the path that I had laid a foundation for in college, right? Because while I was in graduate school, I had interned with IBM and had hoped to continue working with IBM after college. But things changed because of an economic downturn, and I lost that opportunity with IBM, and I had to rethink my plan. So what advice would you give girls to women who are interested in pursuing careers in security? Because I would say have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C.
I have been with DHS since its inception, and it's been a very rewarding career for me. Like with any job, you need to research and know what you're getting into. Understand that it can be demanding and stressful, But any job that has purpose will come with challenges. Some positions like mine and Amanda's require us to travel 1 to 5 nights per month. And at times we are designated as essential personnel, which means we must serve during continuity of operation events. PSAs are almost all veterans. The ones who aren't are usually hired from within DHS, such as the Secret Service, FEMA, and/or CISA. For state and local law enforcement emergency response officials who are not veterans, it can be tough competing with the veterans. One other thought, the United States is short about 500,000 cybersecurity professionals, and that number is growing. So one of the few ways to get a job in CISA without veteran status is as a cybersecurity professional. So it is best to seek out a mentor, someone who is already in the position that you're looking to become and would like to mentor you. You will get firsthand information about the demands and the responsibilities of the position. But I can truly say, after being mentored by me and others, you'd want to have this job. It's not an easy job, but it is very rewarding. I say this quite a bit, and those who know me, I love being a PSA, helping owners and operators protect their infrastructure, and I have the best job in the federal government.
This is a great field to be in. You know, I'd highly recommend considering it if you're not already in it. And, you know, one of the things that I hear a lot is, particularly from girls and women, is they sit there and they say, well, I'm not smart enough to be in cybersecurity, or I'm not smart enough to do this. And I'm sorry, but that's not true. You can totally do this. You know, you can go on the really technical side, or you can still do cybersecurity and not necessarily be as technical as some other people, right? But the key is that it's a huge field. You have a lot of opportunities. You know, don't be afraid to take that chance and try it out. The field, and if you don't like what you're doing in the field, try something else. There's a lot of opportunities. Be willing to take on challenges. You know, this field is a very fast-paced and dynamic environment. There's a lot of changes that are going on, which is good, right? Because then that means you'll never get bored. Something new will always happen. The other thing that I think is important to note, and it's good, is that this is a field where you can constantly keep learning. And it's important that you keep learning throughout your career. You need to do it in order to stay ahead. There's just a lot of different things that are happening and changes that are happening every day. And the only way that you're going to be able to keep on top of it is, as best you can, is being willing to and seeking out new learning opportunities, whether that's listening to podcasts on your drive home, or while you're, you know, walking around the block, or walking the dog, or doing things like that. You can also do things like attend networking functions and different professional meetings and things like that. As students, you can do that. As women who aren't necessarily in the field yet, but are interested in learning more about it, you can still join and attend a lot of those different networking groups as well. Most importantly, and I can't stress this enough, is don't be afraid to ask for help when needed. Right? There's nothing wrong with asking for help. And there's no way that you can ever know everything that you're going to need to know for this field. It's too big. There's too many changes that are constantly going on. The way that you're going to stay on top of everything you need to know and be successful is to work with others and to get help when needed. Ask questions. As long as you do those couple of things, there's no doubt that you'll do well in this field and you'll be able to be a success.
That's a really, really great question, Madeline, at a pivotal time for our nation. And I think my answer is more broadly applicable to any career field, because I really do think it's important that we, as women, as people, don't restrict our goals with preconceived notions of who or what we should become. So with the possibility of having the first woman elected to the second highest office in this nation, I would simply say to everyone, be unstoppable. Too often we judge people based on their past experiences, what they have already done, rather than what they could become. So know your strengths, build your expertise, and when opportunities arise, even if they seem like they're out of reach, put your name in the hat. I didn't start out as an expert in chemical security, and I'm certainly not one now. I didn't come from a law enforcement or military background, but each one of my positions has built on the skills I had and enabled me to step forward and help others see done, but the potential that I had to do more. Growing up, I had a strong role model in my mom, and in college, a wonderful professor who instilled confidence in me simply by believing in me, which in turn made me believe in myself. As the mother to a young daughter, I try to set an example for her and encourage her in everything she does. My hope is that she will be the type of girl, woman, colleague, and friend who will do the same for others throughout her life.
Historically, Homeland Security has been more male-driven, and so we do have a lot of pretty large male workforce, and especially white male workforce. But I think the main thing is really if Homeland Security and emergency management is something you want to go into, then there are degree programs out there that can help with that. I currently teach at University of Washington in an infrastructure planning program, and we do have 50-50 women and 50% women, 50% men. So I do see it improving. But I would say really focus on education in that field, and also try to do local internships, right? So if you're interested in emergency management, or if you're interested in Homeland Security, see if you can get a local, might be unpaid internship at your local county emergency management office, maybe your local sheriff or local police department, to just get better understanding of how they work. So I really think just really diving into not only education, but some work experience, even if it's just intern and unpaid, I think that will really help you, number one, see what Homeland Security is like in the field that we work in, and make you more qualified when you actually do apply for those positions. So I would definitely encourage you to just keep at it, and ideally, over time that ratio of men to women in the DHS will gradually change and become more even, as well as we keep moving forward and bringing more women into this field.